Hi there, it's Jeanette. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a new card to share with you, and it features this super sweet mermaid. This is a stamp set from Honeybee Stamps, and I think she's absolutely adorable. I created a background for her with Distress Oxide ink, and it makes it look like she's swimming in the ocean with some sunlight beaming down on her. So the first thing I did was I took some Neenah cardstock, secured it with some magnets, and I'm inking up the stamps using Memento Tuxedo black ink. I got a great impression the first time, so I was able just to clean off my stamps and get to the coloring. So here are the Copic markers I used. I have listed them in the order that I'm using them so that as I'm coloring you can know what I'm using. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a little bit of music during the coloration, and then when that's all done I'll catch you at the end of that, and I will continue sharing how I created the rest of the card and particularly the background. So I'll see you at the end of the coloration. Okay guys, I'm back. I did go in and add all these tiny white dots all along her hair. I sort of looked at the way the strands were sort of flowing and followed those sort of paths, and I really like how that looks. I think it really makes everything look sparkly and bright. And then I cut everything out. Now there are some dies that do go along with the stamp set, so that if you don't want to actually have to fussy cut everything, you could get the dies and cut them out that way. So now I have a piece of Strathmore Bristol paper, and I am starting to sponge on some Distress Oxide ink. This first one is Salty Ocean. The next one was Cracked Pistachio, but I found it was a little bit light. So I did go in with a darker sort of blue-green color. So this is Peacock Feathers. And I'm just sort of blending and buffing everything. I'm not being too careful because I am going to spritz it with some water to distress it. But you do want it to be fairly sort of blended. And this last color I used is Broken China. So when that was all done, I spritzed it down with that distress sprayer, and then I just dabbed at the water, and you can see I get all these really great distress marks all over the paper. I sort of let it dry a little bit, and then I took this stencil. This is from Whimsy, and it's called the Sunray Stencil, and I'm just going to secure it with some post-it tape so it doesn't move too much. And now I'm taking Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm just sort of stroking it down each ray. If you try to work in a circular motion, you'd sort of run into trouble, so it's easier just to follow the sort of lines. And then I'm using Twisted Citron, and I'm working up the other way. And that gives me some sun rays, and then I'm just going to soften them a little bit with the Twisted Citron so they're not so harsh. And this looks like, you know, the sun is beaming through the ocean. And I really like how it all turned out. So I'm positioning the images where I think they're going to be, and I am going to take these little bubble stamps that are in the set, and I'm going to use first my embossing buddy to remove the static, and then I'm going to be using Versamark, stamping them all sort of randomly around where the images are. I'm adding my embossing powder, tapping off the excess, and then I'm taking my embossing heat gun and melting all the powder. So you can see I have all these random little bubbles all around the images. And then I decided to add the sentiment, so I just added the very simple sentiment. It says, "I love you." And I'm going to add the powder, tap it off, and then use my heat gun again to melt it down. So now that that's all done, I'm going to add the images to the card. I'm using the Nuvo glue, just pressing it down, and I'm using the little sort of tweezers to make sure that I'm adding the images exactly where I want them. Put the bottle up there. It looks like it's sort of floating down to her. And then I did add a few white dot details again with this pen, and I don't think they really show up too well on the camera, but they're there. I created the card base by cutting a piece of cardstock in half and then scoring it in half. And I'm just going to use some adhesive tape to get that onto the card base. And my card is all done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. Here are the Copic marker numbers again, if it's easier for you to find it at the end of the video. And as always, a full list of the supplies and links can be found below this video on YouTube, or you can check out my blog. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon.